Holy smokes, we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, well, let's start with that breaking news. And by the way, we have a lot of breaking news. So when I say that breaking news, let me specify. This is the one about Amazon canceling its controversial plans to build its second headquarters, or at least part of its second headquarters, in New York City.
In a statement released about an hour ago, Amazon cites issues with local representatives who oppose the plans, saying in part, quote, "For Amazon, the commitment to build a new headquarters requires positive, collaborative relationships with state and local elected officials who will be supportive over the long term. A number of state and local politicians have made it clear that they oppose our presence and will not work with us to build the type of relationships that are required to go forward with this project."
And one of them in particular, one state senator, was at the front of this push to not have Amazon come in. We're going to be speaking to him very shortly. But Amazon says it does not intend to reopen the search for a new headquarters right now.
Interesting. Joining us now, NBC News technology correspondent Jacob Ward and NBC senior media reporter Dylan Byers. Jacob, to you first. We know Amazon promised 25,000 jobs and millions of dollars in investment in exchange for almost $2 billion in tax incentives. How big of a loss is that to a city like New York? New York knew they were coming, and we had to be, on some level, planning for that kind of dough coming in the door.
That's absolutely right. I mean, Stephanie, Governor Cuomo had said that, he labors for days at a time to try to get even a business with 100 or 200 jobs into the city. The loss of 25,000 jobs, a very, very big deal. But I think that, the larger objection that so many people had is that when you bring in a tech company, a huge 25,000 job tech company, a headquarters like that into a city like New York, it's not like bringing in a stadium where suddenly you can employ anyone who happens to live in that neighborhood. You are attracting outside talent, the best and the brightest, which is all Amazon will settle for. And obviously, city leaders just felt this wasn't going to be overall the right kind of benefit for that neighborhood and maybe for the city as a whole.
There's an active debate, Dylan, going on our social media and probably yours. People are on either side of this thing. There are a whole bunch of people who thought this is really great. This is great for New York. It's great for these cities. It's great for Amazon. And a whole bunch of people who think Amazon basically strung the entire country along for a long time with the idea that it would go in and sort of change communities. Was never really going to change New York all that much. But is this good or bad as you see it, this development?
Well, look, that like you said, it's a divisive issue, and that totally depends on how you crunch the numbers. There are obviously a lot of people, I would say the people who won today, who feel like Amazon doesn't deserve $3 billion in tax incentives. There's another contingent that feels like, look, 25,000 jobs to the area. Over the course of time, that would have benefited Long Island City. It would have benefited the city of New York. It would have been a rising tide that lifted all boats. I can tell you, as a kid from Seattle, I know what Amazon can do to a city. It
both good and bad, right? There are a lot of property owners.
But let's take a minute. Let's think about actually New York for a second. Mm-hmm. And we could say, listen, New York is fine and dandy. We don't need it. But take yourself back in New York City 15 years ago to the Meatpacking District. Think about what the Meatpacking District was. And
you mean back in that day when people could actually afford to rent a place in New York?
They could afford.
Which they can't today?
But hold on.
Middle-class people cannot rent a place in New York.
I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just painting the picture, okay? In the Meatpacking District, you had those meatpacking facilities. You had more affordable housing. But since that neighborhood changed, you now have a whole lot more jobs. Yes, they're higher paying jobs. You have technology companies over there.
Right.
This is a weighing game.
And none of us know a teacher who lives in New York. None of us know a police officer who lives in New York. None of us know a firefighter who lives in New York. None of us know an artist. You know why there's no graffiti in New York? Because it's too much of a commute from the place that the graffiti artist lives to come into the city.
Allie and Stephanie, what I would say is the gentrification of Manhattan and Brooklyn obviously happened a long time ago. I think there's a question, are we going to keep bringing in people from the outside and pushing the people who live in boroughs like Queens farther and farther out? I think what's sort of interesting is the statistician Nate Silver over at ESPN made a really interesting observation this morning, which is, look, the people who actually supported, if you look at the polls, the people who actually supported bringing Amazon into Long Island City included a lot of people in the outer boroughs, in Queens, and minorities. If you look at the people who opposed it, it was actually largely white affluent people in Manhattan and Brooklyn. Now, obviously, that's just one poll, but I think that at the end of the day, the last word on this is that Amazon would have been good and bad for New York City. And the question is, did the good outweigh the bad? And was the long-term investment in growth from Amazon worth the short-term cost that was going to come to taxpayers?
I think
and that's an open debate.
That's what you've hit, right? Nobody's going to complain that it's bad to have companies come into your city to do work. But Jacob, what Amazon extracted in order to get this location in New York is what a lot of people are critical of. What they extracted from the New York government, from the state government, from the city government.
This is the $1 billion
That's right, and
point.
I think to think more,
$1.85
broadly
billion.
about. That's right. I mean, the thing I would say, more broadly is that they extracted from 238 cities across the country between 5 and 10 possible sites. That's what you had to submit to be part of the competition. And so, as with all tech companies, and especially with Amazon, you got to think about what their long-term strategy is. This is not a company that's planning to stop expanding. They're going to expand and expand. And so now they know, based on the thousands of sites made available to them that they extracted through this process, not only do they know what kind of concessions they're going to get from local leaders, they know exactly where they're going to put, a Latin American headquarters that could be perfect in Miami, right? An R&D center in Pittsburgh. Like, they have a list of expansion sites that they are absolutely ready for. So not only did they manage to get all these concessions from New York City, obviously with an incredible amount of protest in the end, such that it drove them away, but they have a backup plan and a backup plan on top of a backup plan. So this is by no means the end of Amazon expanding.
I don't think Amazon suffers one way or the other.
I'm pretty sure.
No, we're all still busy.
So.
Well, in the commercial breaks, we're all still busy ordering stuff from them while we have a lot to say about it.
My question to you, though, is, and I don't know that I know the answer, was New York City better or worse off before? The Meatpacking District is our most recent example. 15 years ago, what it was, before the High Line was redeveloped, before the neighborhood was gentrified. Are we better off today or 15 years ago?
So I think that's a good, and it's a question with a lot of answers, right? When you walk down by Hudson Yards and you say, that looks fantastic. But you look at what it costs to rent in a place like that, and we do have to worry that we don't become like London, right? A city where really nobody who works there can afford to do it, right? This is New York and San Francisco and Los Angeles and Seattle are all becoming cities that are becoming unaffordable for people.
And San Francisco is suffering.
Yeah.
That's right.
This
That's
is complicated.
Right. Ali and Stephanie, I would also just jump in here and say real quick, that cities are changed. There is no going back to an earlier time. There is no freezing a time and place. All we can do is try to, ride the bucking bronco of change as it happens. And in this
so
case,
the question is it not enough then for these cities to relocate for these companies to relocate to these cities? I guess the issue here is the concessions, the money, the tax giveaways that had to happen for stuff that will have good results, i.e. high-paying jobs, and bad results, i.e. Very expensive properties and the inability to buy and difficulty renting. I guess that's the question. Is the trade-off worth it? This is New York City. LA, Seattle, companies will go there. It's happening. I guess the better example is you look at Nashville today. Nashville is a city minding its own business with a whole bunch of New York bankers who are about to settle in there because it's becoming too expensive to live in New York. So bankers in New York, banking companies, banks, are resettling people
They're
to places
putting their
like
back office in Jacksonville, Florida, Nashville, Tennessee, outside of Detroit. And, what an Amazon could do in places like Philadelphia or Baltimore. It would be massive there.
Guys, there's a larger story here, which is that I actually wrote about in my newsletter this morning. There's a massive concentration of wealth going into a very small, select group of cities. The cities, Ali, that you mentioned, where it is not really affordable for anyone in the middle class to live there anymore. One interesting thing about the incentives, I wonder, we're talking about winners and losers here. I wonder, does Jeff Bezos lose here just a little bit? If he had conceded a little more, if he had said maybe I'm not going to take so much money, or maybe he had announced, a better rollout, maybe announced an investment in New York City infrastructure, in the subway system, something like that.
If he did,
had a chance to
if he did a reverse Foxconn. Right?
Exactly.
If Foxconn was saying, yep, we're going to come to Wisconsin and we want you to pay us, we want $1 zillion in breaks. What if Jeff Bezos said, I'm coming to New York, give me nothing?
And here's why look, you're right. Jeff Bezos can go anywhere. Amazon is going to be just fine. But I wonder about his sort of legacy. He's a guy who wants to go to space. He's a guy who bought the Washington Post. Here was an opening to be one of the most influential players in one of the most influential cities in the world. He really could have staked a claim on New York and had influence on New York if he was willing to just give up a little bit more. And I think that's an interesting debate to tease out. And then one other thing about winners and losers, it's going around on Twitter a lot, you guys, but the folks who bought real estate in Long Island City because they thought that they were making an investment on the future and now have to figure out what to do with those condos and apartments, there's a lot of people who I think are tearing their hair out about those investments right now.
can't say anything about people tearing their hair out. But in fairness, this Long Island City is one subway stop away from Manhattan. It's not going to suffer all that much in the long run. Somebody else will locate that.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
I know we have no time left. Let's say he chose a different city. I know.
5 minutes ago.
But let's say he chose a different city. Let's say he chose Rochester or Nashville or Philadelphia.
I think the conversation would be much more favorable to Amazon.
What would be right? So if Amazon is making the statement, we need to get along with local politicians. Local politicians don't want us there, so we're not coming. What would the local politicians have said
I think they would have a
in
different
cities that were in need?
Rochester had Kodak gone. They would love a nice big plant. Guys, good to see you. We could talk about this for a long time, but I guess we got some other stuff we got to get to.
We can, but our producer is going to kill us.
Going to pull out my hair. Dylan Byers, NBC senior media reporter, and Jacob Ward, NBC News senior technology correspondent. Jeff Bezos blames local officials who oppose Amazon's presence in New York. Coming up later this hour, New York State Senator Michael Gianaris, who represents Long Island City and surrounding areas in the state legislature, is going to join us. He led the resistance against Amazon in New York. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.